right, welcome to First and Filoni. This is episode 4, I believe, of this season. Today we're going to talk about the Big Ten. As always, I'm Donovan Filoni, joined weekly here now with Andrew Cooper. But before we get into the Big Ten, this week has been kind of crazy news since we recorded last Wednesday to right now. We've had some crazy realignment rumors and things that actually have happened. So since we've recorded, what we've speculated with Arizona State, and Utah are now moving to the Big 12. Looks like Oregon and Washington are officially moving to the Big 10 next season. So there's really only 4 or 5 teams left in the Pac-12, which means they're pretty much dead. So my question to you, man, like with all these moves, we'll talk about Florida State in a minute, but with all these moves, where do you think the Cals, Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford stand right now? Where do you think they're going to go?
Man, if I had to pick, I would say the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Somewhat close to home, so that way they don't have to travel. I know there was rumors of them trying to. The ACC was looking at them, but to me that doesn't make sense having two West Coast teams. That's a lot of traveling or a short turnaround week, especially if you got to play on a Thursday night or something. So if I had to guess, I would say the Big Ten.
Yeah, I've heard a couple things. I've heard Stanford is trying to get into the Big Ten if Notre Dame goes. Which I mean, I think Notre Dame, if they were to fit into a division, the Big Ten would be a good one for them to be in. Cal, I don't see Cal going anywhere, and I can see Washington State and Oregon State going to like the Mountain West. But I mean, I think those 4 teams, the advantage Stanford and Cal have is all the research grants they get. There's a bunch of nerds over there, and that'll help them out because research grant money is huge for the conference, right? So like that prestige will help them out. I did hear ACC as well, which I think is stupid, like you said, kind of have like 2 coastal conferences, and you're only bringing in 2 or 4 teams like on the Pacific coast. Like that just seems very difficult for your smaller schools, like a Duke or a Wake Forest. Like that just seems really, really dumb. But who knows?
Well,
I
I will
mean,
say this: shout out to Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach from Missouri.
yeah.
He kind of had a good point. You know what I mean? As far as the mental health of a student athlete, yeah, it might not bother football, but baseball and softball and all that other stuff, man. So good for him for speaking his mind too.
Yeah, and he was getting crap on the other side about how he moved conferences too, but Missouri moved what 12 years ago, something like that, to SEC. So like,
They've been in the SEC a while.
yeah, the issue isn't with that. I just the region, the United States is so big, and this is where we're going to see in the next couple of years, um, that realignment is going to get to like 3 power conferences, 3, 4 power conferences, and then they're just going to dissolve into smaller ones. So we might see regionality, but it's probably not going to be for another 5, 10 years unless teams start like kicking other teams out, like the Rutgers and the Purdue's and the Indiana's. Well, Indiana's safe with basketball, I guess, prestige. Wake Forest, stuff like that. Like until they can kick those guys out, which I don't think that's the solution either. I think what we kind of talked about last week of having like a Midwest, a West Coast, and then a Northeast, Southeast kind of divisions. I saw a map the other day, and I meant to send it to you, but it had like Arizona North, so like Arizona, Utah, all them, and West would be one conference, and then between that and the other side of Texas, or through like the Iowas and Minnesotas would be another conference, which would be basically like what the Big 12 is, plus like your Iowa, Indiana, Minnesota stuff from the Big 10, and then draw that line like right at Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia. Have the Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia schools go south, everybody else go north, and have the 4 divisions like that. I wouldn't mind that, but it's just going to dominoes are going to continue to fall. And one of the ones that seems to be rumored to continue to fall is Florida State. They hired JP Morgan Chase to try to get out of the $120 million buyout fee because they don't have the money right now to do it supposedly. But along with that, they have this thing called the grant of rights, and we kind of touched on it last week a little bit, but touch on it a little bit more. What that means is even if they do hit the buyout, their games cannot be nationally televised because the ACC still has rights to that until they get another dollar figure on top of that. So do I think Florida State and Clemson are going to leave the ACC this year? By August 15th is the deadline that they have to submit by. I doubt it. I think it's maybe at like a 25% chance. But there's plenty of other August 15th until, you know what I mean, until 2036 is when the ACC TV contract is up. And who's to say by, next year for the year after that, they don't get poached by the Big Ten or the SEC. But I didn't know if you had any more insight on that. I know I just found that out listening to the Late Kick with Josh Pate and then Unnecessary Roughness to the college football podcast I listened to.
Well, I mean, all right. So I don't see them doing it this year. I don't see them doing it next year. I think they're going to probably start putting their ducks in a row.
Yeah.
I think they also kind of want to see how the ACC plays out and who they get into their conference.
Well, nobody's going to want
before
to
they make the
that
jump.
TV deal, though. That's the problem. Unless they get like a JMU or somebody, which JMU would be a good.
Yeah,
I think they would be good. JMU and Coastal, add them both to the ACC, and I think that bolsters them.
That's what I'm getting at. So, like those little schools, well, hell, they're not little schools now, but if you get those schools into the
Right.
ACC, I give it like a 2 to 3 year timeline. I would say 3 years max, and that's being real generous before FSU and Clemson makes the leap.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
It's hard. It's hard to say.
If FSU and Clemson are the only two teams that leave, you need to replace them, I think. And I think Coastal and JMU would be the perfect schools to do it. JMU came on the scene
No,
last.
I mean you could even put Liberty into it.
Yeah. I mean, then Liberty's a massive school. So you're exactly right. And I think JMU came in FBS swinging last year. They had a great record last year. I think they're going to be great this year. Their uniforms are low-key badass. Like, I really like that. I really like their uniforms and their logo. I think if they get into a bigger conference, just same thing with Coastal. Like, Coastal's right on Myrtle Beach. Like, who doesn't want to go to college in Myrtle Beach? Like,
I mean, look at Kenny Powers. That's where he plays ball.
I just feel like I think you're right. And I think ACC, I don't think they're going to go away necessarily. But I can see them doing kind of like the Big 12 model and maybe going as like a basketball first conference. Not to say the football won't be good, but like a basketball mainly first. But we'll see. I'm tired of conference realignment talk. I'm ready to talk about actual football. Fall camp started this week. There's some great quarterback battles out here. I sent you a video on Instagram, I believe it was, of Shedeur Sanders dropping a dime, which is making me hype Colorado up even more. But let's talk a little bit of Big Ten here. So with Oregon and Washington, well, this is the last thing we'll touch on what's new, because there's not much new else in the Big Ten except for Oregon and Washington, UCLA, USC coming into the league next year. Out of those four teams, this is the last year I do believe that it is two different divisions within the conference, but I think they're going to have to have a West Coast division, West and East again, more separated. Out of those four teams, who do you think will fit the Big One? Who will fit Big Ten play style the best? And two, who will have the most success? Because I think those are two different answers. And they can be the same answer for you, but I think mine are two different answers.
All right. So correct me wrong. So it is Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I really think Oregon's going to fit in well.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. I had Oregon. Unfortunately, USC is probably going to fit in well too.
The only concern I have with USC is they can't stop the run worth of shit.
Well, the Pac-12 is pretty much known for high scoring anyway.
Yeah.
So I have UCLA is going to be a non-factor, I think, for 3 to 4 years.
Well, it all
Hell,
kind
they
of
might not.
depends on that quarterback if he doesn't transfer out.
Right, but I mean, I think the 3 out of the 4, I think Oregon fits in well. USC and Washington would be my top 3.
Yeah, I think Oregon's going to have the most success, I think, in the long run. They fit in the best right away, but USC, what scares me about them is all those Cali boys going up to a game at the Big House in the middle of November when it's cold as shit and snowing. Big House, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, any of those stadiums, like that kind of scares me here. And I think that gives those teams the advantage. But okay, so let's go ahead and talk about Big Ten then a little bit more, not next year, but for this year. One of the biggest moves, and we're going to go to our transfer section of the show. One of the biggest news is Luke Fickell taking the job at Wisconsin instead of waiting for the Ohio State job. Did that surprise you? What are your expectations for him?
No, I wouldn't say it really surprised me. I think he was ready to get paid.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Cincinnati can't compete with Wisconsin's money, especially in football. Man, Camp Randall, that place is electric. Um, I look for him to be solid this year. I'm gonna say 9-3, 8-4.
Okay. We'll save my prediction for them by the end of the show. I think Luke Fickell, with his offensive mind, and if you remember, and this is an unknown fact, Luke Fickell is known for the spread offense with a passing attack, but the offensive coordinator he hired, Longo, right?
Yeah, from UNC.
From UNC. And he's had success with his offense and he's known to spread them out. But what people don't know is Longo also runs the ball very, very well. And if they can continue to recruit the offensive line like Wisconsin can recruit and the running backs that they can recruit, and then they can add maybe a quarterback who can throw the ball to some good receivers, that might be a very scary combination for the Big Ten going forward. I have very high hopes for Luke Fickell, and I liked him at Cincinnati. I think he's a brilliant coach. I would have loved to see him at Ohio State, but Ryan Day right now has that job. I don't think he should have that job, but he does. And Luke Fickell did the right thing going to Wisconsin. He goes to a conference championship, once every 3-4 years with them, like he's set for life. But I think it brings Wisconsin up to the Michigans and Ohio States of the world within 3 years.
I agree.
Okay, so more transfers. Let's get into the players. Like I said before, no real defensive players to really super highlight. I mean, there's going to be playmakers and stuff, but we mainly focus on the offense here since college football is mainly offense. Quarterbacks, I got 4 quarterbacks that transferred in. We got Tanner Mordecai from SMU to Wisconsin, Cade McNamara from Michigan to Iowa, Hudson Card from Texas to Purdue, and then Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech to Nebraska. Out of those 4, I think Tanner Mordecai is an interesting one to Wisconsin. They got a bunch of freshmen up there. Shout out Mike, his little brother is the number 2 or 3 quarterback on the depth chart, redshirt freshman. Hopefully we get to see him play a little bit, but I think the one that does it for me here is Cade McNamara to Iowa. That gives Iowa's offense something that they haven't had. And I mean, it was abysmal last year. Like it was awful.
Yeah, Cade McNamara is probably the biggest name that stands out to me.
Yeah.
I think the sleeper is definitely. I had 2. I think the sleeper is going to be Hudson Card. I really think he's going to go to Purdue. I'm not saying he's going to light. Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to light it up, but I think he's going to boost him well over a 500 record.
Hot takes. I didn't see it
And the
from
other
him
two that
last
I
year.
have, well, a lot of things can happen.
Yeah.
Look at Angels in the outfield, for God's sakes.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other two that I have was Dante Cephas transferring to Penn State.
Hmm.
And then I had Michigan State also picking up Josiah Stewart.
Yeah, so I didn't have that second one. But we can talk a little bit about running backs here. We got Sean Taylor from Western Michigan and Minnesota. PJ Fleck replaces Ibrahim from last year, who was a stud. Jaron Mangham from USF to Michigan State. Who cares about Michigan State? I don't think they're going to be good again this year. Tyrese Chambers from FIU to Maryland, which is another one for Tua's cousin to throw to. Like you said, Dante Cephas from Kent State to Penn State. I think that is key, like you just said. Like that one stands out to me the most as well. And then Corey Kroom and Elijah Spencer to Minnesota. CJ Williams from USC to Wisconsin. So Luke Fickell picks up another wide receiver there. And then along with Cade McNamara, tight end Eric All goes to Michigan or goes to Iowa from Michigan as well. So he has a familiar face. I think you hit it right on the head with what you said. Dante Cephas, I think, is the one outside of the quarterbacks with Tanner Mordecai and Cade McNamara, and Hudson Card from what you said. I think Dante Cephas is the key. The dude's fast. He can run routes. Kent State had no business. I mean, they did a good job getting him, but like he had no business playing on that team. Like he's going to be good with gunslinger with Drew Aller, who I thought should have played over Sean Clifford last year, but I think Penn State is looking very, very, very good this year. Okay, and then the top transfer teams, and this kind of surprised me because there was none in the top 10, none in the top 15. Michigan was number 17. Indiana was number 19. Maryland was 24, and then Wisconsin was 25. Ohio State didn't hit the transfer portal. Penn State didn't hit the transfer portal. Michigan didn't seem to hit it very hard, but I guess their team is pretty stacked this year. Any thoughts on those four teams? Indiana kind of shocks me that they were that high.
Yeah, I'm surprised by Indiana. Don't they have who do they have? Butch Jones?
I couldn't tell you. I don't follow Indiana football, man. They've been dog shit since for all I can remember.
I want to say that's who's there. Damn, I can't remember who it is.
For the coach?
Yeah, I'm just out of curiosity.
Tom Allen.
I don't even know who the hell that is.
Yeah.
Tim Allen's brother.
It don't look like him.
Yeah. All right. Well, I definitely have mine.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I mean, I think that kind of shocks me that the Big Ten. I mean, honestly, the Pac-12 hit the transfer portal hard, and then they just dissolved themselves. I think if they would have lasted one more year, we'd be talking differently. But let's go ahead and move on to record predictions or tiering the teams. This one I almost tiered into 4 different tiers, but I stuck with it and stayed at 3. And you can tell me where I'm wrong. In the bottom tier, tier 3, I have Indiana, Rutgers, Michigan State, and Northwestern.
Yeah,
thoughts?
I agree with all them.
Yeah, Michigan State had that one good year. I think they were flash in the pan, but tier two is where I could have split them into 2 different ones, and I'll list the names, but then I'll list who I think could have been split.
Before we get too far into this, I kind of have Nebraska on that line to where,
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But that's what I'm saying with this one. I think this is where I think on the tier 2, the bottom of tier 2, I think you will have like the Nebraskas, the Purdue's, and Maryland, I think.
Really?
And
You're
then
giving Cade McNamara that much for Iowa? All right, never mind. All right, I'm with you. All right, keep
No,
going.
but so in tier two total, I have Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, Minnesota, Purdue, Nebraska, Wisconsin. And I think Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois are a half a step above the Purdue's, Nebraska's, and Maryland's. But they're also probably all going to be within 3 games of each other. I don't think outside of Wisconsin that I guess you could have maybe made an argument for tier one. But you have a point, man. Like that Nebraska was kind of on the line, right? Like we were high on them last year. They lost in the last 2 years. They lost a bunch of games by like 7 points or less. The ball just never fell their way. Matt Rule, I think, will change it, but I don't know if it's this year or next year.
See, I kind of had Wisconsin flirting on that tier two as well. I don't.
Going
I
to
have to
tier
see
one.
the. No, I
Oh,
don't. I don't, man. To be honest, man, I'm not taking nothing away. I know this is just like a preseason. I I just don't know how the quarterback battle there. It's really like a guessing game, like a chess match. I mean, yeah, you're going through all the history. They always finish what? Let's say the average win total is 5, 6 to get into a bowl. They always
they're always in the
manufacture
8 or 9
8
range.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, they're always in the 8 or 9 range. But how does the new coaching staff affect? You know
Well,
what I'm saying? It's
yeah, I
not like
get
they have
that.
a Russell Wilson or somebody like that.
Well, they got Tanner Mordecai, which he was great at SMU. They still, in my opinion, they have the best running back, and this is a bold statement, so stay with me. They have the best running back in the Big Ten. I think he's better than Blake Corum. I think he's better than Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, Donovan Edwards. Braylon Allen is a stud. I think he's better than all of them. Um, they have CJ Williams coming in that's a transfer. They had the offensive line, and their defense is always going to be solid. And Camp Randall's going to be just right. Camp Randall, that's Michigan or Wisconsin. I
Yeah,
think that's what it is. I could be wrong. It's just a
Randall, I know that.
tough place to play, man. Like so, I mean, I'll just give you one of my bold predictions. I think they're going to be the one coming out of the West, and I don't think it's close. I think your 2 closest ones are Illinois and Iowa, but I think they're going to be playing in the championship game at the end of the season 9-3. I
See,
mean, go
I
ahead.
have it's a toss up for me with Wisconsin and Iowa. Even though Iowa couldn't really score last year, I think now that they got Cade McNamara,
Yeah,
Iowa's always got a pretty stout defense,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're really run heavy. But with McNamara being more of kind of, I'm not going to say like a true dual threat, but he can run the ball. I mean,
Yeah,
you going to see more of still the power I run it down your throat. They're going to mix in some
no,
play actions, try to bust some safeties or corners. I mean,
right.
see that's another team too. You really don't know what you're going to get till week one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, let's look at their schedules. I mean, that's kind of a good segue too, because I was looking at both of their schedules earlier, and I think you're right. Like, I think one's going to be 8-4, one's going to be 9-3. Wisconsin's schedule, we got versus Buffalo, that's a win. At Washington State, that'll be a fun game to watch. We'll know if Wisconsin's Wisconsin, if because Washington State's sneaky good. Then they're versus Georgia Southern, which that's another good game, but that should be a win. At Purdue versus Rutgers. So the first 5 games, they're going to be 4-1 at worst, I think. Then they got Iowa at home. Then they're at Illinois versus Ohio State, at Indiana versus Northwestern versus Nebraska, at Minnesota. So out of those games, the only ones, let's say Washington State's loss. just because it's at Washington State, new offense, new head coach. But I think that's a coin flip. Let's say Iowa is a loss because that's a coin flip. We'll say. I like Illinois. I like Brett Bielema, but he needs one more year to get what he wants in. They lost their running back. They're not going to be as good this year. So I think that's a win. And then the only other loss that I think they're going to have is versus Ohio State, and that's three losses there.
Do they play? Are they playing at Minnesota?
Yes, and that's so you might I can be convinced for that one.
Yeah, I could see them losing that one because inside that stadium, man, it's tough to play there too.
Yeah, but we don't know Minnesota's quarterback. We don't know we don't know anything about Minnesota's offense this year. Like this is where you hit it on the head with Iowa, because I think those three teams are in Illinois. I'll throw in there as well. Those four teams are going to be battling for the top spot in the West.
No, I'm with you.
Let's look
I'm just saying it's a big toss up. It's a big toss up for me in the West. Honestly, I'm not saying Wisconsin's not going to be great because they always are average to best. But what if
Cade McNamara lights a fire under Iowa's offense and they have a good defense like they did last year?
Well, what if Wisconsin don't have the defense? What if the offensive line isn't? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's false. The offensive line is going to be good. Like, come on.
No.
Come on. Let's look at Iowa.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is big hog mollies up front, but I mean, dude, it's just a lot of questions to me in the West versus now the East is even tougher.
I think the East has more questions than the West, because I think the West honestly comes down to Iowa, Wisconsin, and I think I just don't. I like PJ Fleck from Minnesota, and I like Brett Bielema, but like I just don't see them doing it this year. And I think Iowa with Cade McNamara is going to be a whole new offense. And I think there will be some struggles with Wisconsin with a new offense going away from what they're doing traditionally. Now, we don't know what Longo's going to do either. We don't know if he's going to change his whole playbook and become the offensive genius that he is and just add more play action passes or even like a pistol type formation for Wisconsin, right? So I think like you said, there's a lot of questions. But I think in the other side of it, which we'll talk about in a second, when I go to my tier one, I think that's going to be a shit show by the end of the year. But let's take a quick look at Iowa's schedule here. They got Utah State. That should be a win because it's home. They got at Iowa State. Rivalry games are always tricky to me. You never know, but they should win that. Then they're Western Michigan win, Penn State loss, Michigan State win, Purdue win, Wisconsin coin flip, Minnesota coin flip, win at Northwestern, win at Rutgers, Illinois coin flip, Nebraska win. So you might be right. And looking at it now, like I can be convinced with your Iowa take. I can, but I think Luke Fickell, I think and Iowa's coach had so much success for so long, but I think the time has passed him. I think Luke Fickell just gives me that edge, and I could be putting my foot in my mouth. So,
like I said, to me, it's all a toss up on that side of the bracket.
Yeah. And then my tier one, I have three teams, and I think Penn State moves into the tier one this year with Michigan and Ohio State. And I don't think you're going to argue with any of those. So
no, I had the same top one tiers as you did.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, dude, I'm with you, man. Like there's so many possibilities for this, and we could be saying that because we like the parity and stuff like that too. And let's be realistic. Iowa was dog shit last year. How much is Cade McNamara going to really change it? But
okay, well, this also goes to me saying back to the freaking DJ shit, man. just because you get one quarterback don't mean they're going to resurrect the team.
Right. Right. So like if I was smart, I would have thrown that right in your face, right?
So,
But I didn't.
so now we well, that's what I'm saying. But we could go head to head on this the whole freaking night.
Yeah.
And I you wait till we do the rankings because I'm really gonna bust your ass on that.
Yeah, so I'll give you my top my 20 through 25 rankings tonight. I'll give you five to 10 at a time over the next 3 weeks. I'll give you honorable mentions and then 20 to 25 tonight. And you're gonna light my ass up, man, because I don't know. I think I have a good top 10, top 15, but after that, it's okay. So let's talk a little bit about Heisman hopefuls. Now, Heisman hopefuls, like we've said before, is typically a quarterback-driven award, but the Big Ten, I think, has the best possibilities.
We're not we're not going to talk about Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State as far as who we got going to. Or are we saving that for later?
I was going to save it for the conference champs talk, but do you want to
Okay.
talk Michigan?
All right.
Do you want to talk that now?
I'm good. No, we can wait.
Okay, because I think that one's going to be a more. This leads me into my take, so that's the way I went. But, anyways, I think this is where you can see the potential for a non-quarterback to win the Heisman. Right? We got.
I already know who you're talking about.
We got the
Marvin Harrison Jr.
three best running back rooms in college football with Penn State. With Penn State having I have to get their names. Nick Singleton and Katrin Allen. We have Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson at Ohio State, and then we got Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum at Michigan. I think any one of those, more so the Michigan and Ohio State guys, I think any one of those 6 players could potentially be in it if they take the reins and not run by committee. But we also have Marvin Harrison Jr., like you said. I'm going to throw that because you put out Xavier Worthy from Texas. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud, but who's throwing it to him, right? Kyle McCord, I'm not sold on yet. And then we have the 2 quarterbacks with Drew Aller and JJ McCarthy. I think the one that has the most or the biggest potential, let me rephrase that. Who has the best chance preseason is JJ McCarthy. Who will have the best chance by the end of the season is Drew Aller.
All right, you want my top 4?
Yeah, let me hear them because I couldn't narrow down 4, dude. I couldn't.
This was just I had 5, but one was a question mark, and after hearing what you said, I kind of flipped back. So
I mean, we can throw in Breland.
This isn't in any
too.
This isn't in any particular order, but I had Marvin Harrison, JJ McCarthy, Nick Singleton, and Donovan Edwards.
I'm not upset by that because I think Donovan Edwards had a coming out party last year.
Sleeper, honestly, the sleeper for me was Kyle McCord.
Right, and the reason why I didn't put him on there because he hasn't officially won the battle yet, but like he's won the battle. We know he's going to be the day 1 starter. They haven't said it yet. What about Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson, man? Like Travion's Petersburg boy.
Yeah, shit, I forgot about him.
Dude's a stud, but he was hurt all year last year.
I don't know, man. I know, but the 4 that I named are the ones that really stick out the most to me, just from watching them play, I guess, more.
Yeah. No Drew Aller, though.
I don't see it.
Really? Did you see any of his games last year?
I don't have to. This is first take. That's my 4, and that's how I'm going with.
Okay, all right. So we'll go into the conference champs games there. And like we said, you have Iowa coming out of the West. I have Wisconsin. I can go with Iowa as well. I can see Minnesota sliding in there too. But the real question is the East. Who's going to come out? The Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. And this is where it's not. It's going to kind of go along with one of my bold predictions, which I'll come up with. But I think this is the year that Penn State beats either or both Ohio State or Michigan. And I think each one of them lose one game to each other. And I think Penn State comes out. I think Penn State comes out and Michigan gets left behind. I think Ohio State loses 2 games. I think they lose Notre Dame and then one of those 2.
I hate the fact that we think alike. Jesus Christ.
I'm worried about Kyle McCord, man. Like if he can shove the football down my throat, but I just don't. I'm worried about it.
I think this is all right. I can't really say because it's one of the bold take things, and I'll save it for later. But I have Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State each losing to each other.
Yep, exactly.
But I think Ohio State ends up, like you said, with 2 losses.
Yeah, I think they lose to Notre Dame. Or Purdue. Purdue's
exactly.
always the upset. Purdue's always the upset maker.
Oh no, Hudson Card, really? Now you eat your words.
Yeah. So who do you have?
So that was my
out of those 3.
Man.
All right. Well, he's connecting back. I'm curious to hear what he has to say there, but it'd be interesting if he does pick Penn State. So let's hear it from the man himself. Who do you got coming out of those 2, Michigan? Michigan or Penn State? Who you got?
Yeah, sorry for the delay. I feel like I'm decision to play my next 4 years.
Yeah.
I think it's Penn State's year, man. I really do.
Yep. We're in agreement. Well, where's Drew Aller? Oh my goodness, you're not on him.
Yeah, I think he's going to be more of TCU's quarterback from last year.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I'm picking Penn State, but realistically, Michigan's schedule is the easiest
Michigan's
out of all of them.
schedule favors them more than anybody.
Right, but I think that because it's such an easy schedule, I think that's why they lose one of those games. So we'll see. We could just be really high on Penn State this year. And Drew Aller's only a sophomore, so it could be maybe just a learning curve year this year, and then they come back next year. But with those 2 running backs they got, man, and the Cephas kid coming in, I think it's all lining up for it. So, all right. Well, this is the show where we eat some crow here by the end of the season. So let's go ahead and give our Big 10 bold predictions. How many you got this year? I got 3.
I have 2 that I know of, possibly 3.
Okay, you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
All right, my first one. Penn State goes 11-1 and beats either or both Michigan and Ohio State. So I said that earlier, but that was one of my bold predictions. They go 11-1 this year. They beat either one of Ohio State or Michigan, or they beat them both. Their wins set, or their over under set at 9.5. So I feel like it's my least bold, but I think that's a fairly bold one.
All right, one of mine was Matt Rule brings back Nebraska to a bowl game.
6 wins. Okay, I mean, with everything that he lost and who he's got coming in, that'll be pretty big for the first year for him. And I can see it. That'd be great for Nebraska. We need Nebraska back in the national conversation, I think. Okay. Nothing really too edgy so far, and this one's kind of a 2-parter. Ohio State loses 2 games, like we already said, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. hangs it up mid-season because they've lost 2 games to get ready for the NFL draft.
No way. All right.
He's gonna be a top 5 pick, dude. If they're
Oh
losing
yeah,
games and they're out, he's not going to want to play.
without a doubt. So my second one's actually kind of funny. Harbaugh ends up getting suspended more than 4 games. Something else is going to come out.
So for those of you who don't know, Harbaugh got suspended because he was accused of paying for a cheeseburger for a recruit and texting them during the quiet times in the COVID year of 2020. He denied it, but then this summer he came out and said, yeah, he did it. And because he lied about it, he got the 4 games. He would have gotten less if he just admitted that he bought a daggone cheeseburger and texted a recruit during the quiet time, but he didn't. So he lied. He got 4 games. Their first 4 games doesn't matter. But you're saying something else comes out. You think of John Harbaugh shady. I like it. Okay, and then my last one, and it's not necessarily bold, but since we're last time having a 14 playoff, I think 2 teams make the college football playoff this year from the Big Ten: Michigan and Penn State. Don't know how
I can
bold that
definitely see
is,
that.
but Penn State making it, I feel like is pretty bold. So,
All right. So here's my really bold statement. And correct me if I'm wrong, if this is how it's going to work, if it happens. I got Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, right? Let's say they lose 1 game apiece, all 3 to each other.
yeah.
Penn State squeaks by. Penn State gets in to the championship off a point differential.
Oh, I don't know how that works. Is it point differential?
How would that work? I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
I'm not sure. We might have to come back on that next week.
All right. Well, let's say that all 3 they lose to each other, right? How do
Yeah.
you pick who goes to the championship game?
So if only 2 teams remain tied at the end of the season, the winner of the game between the 2 teams are the ones that represent. So, so it goes on, I think, is winning percentage of the Big Ten. So it goes by whoever has the best record in the Big Ten, which they would be all undefeated then, I guess.
You see what I'm saying? What if they only lose 1, but they all 3 lose to each other?
Yeah. 2 teams at times.
Would it be a coin toss like Friday Night Lights?
Hold on. So the records would go in, but then you're saying they're all going to be 11-1. Okay, so it'll be compared based on the winning percentage of the teams in their division. And then the next highest in the division. Hold on, we're on like step 6 right now because your scenario has gone through 5 steps right now, which it's what it's likely going to happen, right?
And I also have another
So it
question.
goes on the record of their schedule. So what will happen is
Okay.
whoever has the best record of the teams that they've played. So like the teams
All
that they've
right.
played record combined, I believe. Now I could be wrong. Please
Okay.
somebody fact check on me, but like that's what I just read and how I understood it very quickly. But I mean, if we look at it here, I got the schedules up. Michigan doesn't play anybody good. They got East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue, at Penn State, Maryland versus Ohio State. So they only have 2 really good games. Maryland might be a tricky one for them because that's kind of like right in between 2 big ones. Penn State has a little bit tougher of a schedule. They got West Virginia, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, UMass, Ohio State, Indiana, Maryland, Michigan, Rutgers, Michigan State. And then Ohio State has Indiana, Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, Notre Dame, Maryland, Purdue, Penn State, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Michigan State, Minnesota, Michigan. Ohio State has the best record out of all, or has the best chance to win that out of all of them. I think it's Ohio
that.
State, Penn State, Michigan. So we'll see. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about it more. I think by the end of the year, I think that's where we're going to end up going to. So I don't think that's a bad take.
All right. So I don't know if it's considered really a bold statement. Ryan Day's on the hot seat if he does not produce a Big Ten championship this year.
I think if they lose to Michigan, he's fired. I think if you lose to Michigan 3 years in a row, he's
Oh yeah, I think this year if he doesn't produce, he's out.
Yeah, I agree. Now he had a good showing against Georgia last year in the playoff, which I think bought him a little bit more leeway. But if he loses 2 games and loses to Michigan again, I think he's gone. So
yeah, okay.
All right,
so we're in agreement on that.
We got two more sections here. The first one, best uniforms. Now I found this one to be very, very difficult. The reason being, like, all the uniforms I think in the Big Ten are not very good. So I had a trouble picking out which uniforms I think was the best. I had 3 of them. Iowa because they look like the Steelers. Ohio State, I like the white on the gray pants with the red highlight. And then Penn State, I love just the classic plain, the blue or the all whites or like the blue top. Like the all whites and the whiteout is amazing. What you got for best uniforms?
All right. So I had Maryland.
Okay, yeah, the Under Armour.
Penn State.
Yep.
I like I do like Penn State, Iowa, and I think my favorite one's going to be Minnesota.
See, I almost put them on there, but then I looked at them and they redid them again, and they look awful again. Like they look bad. They had a couple good years, but they look bad.
Oh shit. That sucks.
Okay, so last week I teased that I'm going to do my first top 25 preseason poll. Now, it's a preseason poll. The coaches poll just came out this week. I thought we were going to talk a little bit about it, but I don't, because it's a coaches poll, I don't really want to. I think the true first preseason poll comes out next week. But I wanted to make my own. So tonight, I'm going to give you number 20 through 25, so 6 teams. I'm going to give you some honorable mentions. And then next week, I'll give you 10 through 19. And then the week after that, I'll give you 1 through 9. So that's what we'll get here.
Yeah.
And Andrew, you don't know about these ahead of time. So if you need to write them down or whatever you need to do, let me know. But I wanted to get your live reaction for the folks at home. So you want to start off with honorable mentions first? I got 5 honorable mentions.
Yeah, let me write this down.
6 honorable mentions that I could have argued for pretty much any one of these spots. I think we're going to do 21 through 25. So any one of these spots I think could have been in here. Now, it's preseason. It's not for the end of the season. I have UNC as an honorable mention. I have South Carolina as an honorable mention. Pitt, Miami, NC State, and then UTSA.
No.
All honorable mentions. They're not in my top 25. Would you have any of those in your top 25 right now?
I could see putting South Carolina in there.
Yeah, and they just had another big week. They got 2 more 5 stars or 4 stars. Yeah, 4 or 5 stars.
I could see South Carolina Carolina sliding into between the 24 and the 25 mark.
Yeah, South Carolina was my toughest one to leave out, but we don't know, and the reason why I left him out is because we don't know what Spencer Sanders we're gonna get, and I had to put one G5 Rattler. Whoa, Spencer Rattler. I had to put one G5 team in there, and my G5 team is actually number 25. It is the Tulane Green Wave, and you know how much I love them. Best logo, I think, in college football right now. So I have Tulane at 25. I have Texas A&M at 24. I have Texas Tech at 23.
Hold on.
Okay.
You have Tulane 25.
Tulane 25. Texas A&M 24. Texas Tech 23.
All right.
I have Iowa at 22. And to round out the night last one that we're gonna give you tonight, I have Wisconsin at 21. Would you take South Carolina over any of them?
Yes, I would.
See, this is where
I would take. Actually, I would take South Carolina over two of them.
Tulane.
No, hell no. I'm riding high on the Green Wave.
They're going to be good again this year.
I would have
the coach, but they're going to be good.
I would have them over Texas A&M and Iowa.
Really, after your Cade McNamara propaganda that you talked about all year, the only reason
to me, Iowa's the honorable. No, Iowa is the honorable mention for me. But after about week 2 or 3, that's when they start climbing up the polls.
So I can do that. I can see that. I can replace Iowa with South Carolina. I'm not easily swayed on that. I think Texas Tech and Texas A&M, Tulane, I think those are the bottom 3 of the top 25 in whatever order you want to put them in. But I can be swayed replacing Iowa with South Carolina. I couldn't.
Yeah. Leave NC State out of your mouth. Let them. They're not even an honorable mention. Let them be the underdogs. They do a hell of a lot better when they're freaking underdogs. So do not even bring that up.
When they beat Notre Dame week 2, you know.
Oh, okay. Is that your prediction now?
No. Okay, guys. Well,
I really need to talk to my wife and see if I can give up my on call that weekend so I can go to that game.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it for us. Like I said, next week, it'll be the SEC, the best conference by far in the last 20 years, probably 15 years. We'll talk about the SEC. We'll talk about my 11 through 20 picks for the preseason ranks. And then we'll go into week 0 after that. So we're 2 weeks away from college football, even though it is week 0 and it's not going to be good football. During week 0, I'll give my final top 25 with the full list. We'll give out game picks. We'll give out Donovan's locks, and then we'll give out our official college football prediction from both Andrew and myself of who the 4 teams that will be in the college football playoff next year. So thanks again for everybody listening at home. Thank you. Like, subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend. If you have any questions, as always, just shoot us a message on any of our socials. If you have our cell phone numbers, shoot us a message there. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you later.